For years, we've been told that if you want autophagy, the most powerful cellular repair system in your body, you have to suffer for it. You have to fast. You have to push through hunger. You have to earn it through deprivation. But what if that narrative is incomplete? What if autophagy isn't just about starving your body, but about sending it the right signals? Autophagy, from the Greek meaning self-eating, is your body's built-in recycling system. It's the mechanism that identifies damaged proteins, dysfunctional mitochondria, and cellular debris, then breaks them down and repurposes them. In 2016, Yoshinori Osumi won the Nobel Prize for discovering the core mechanisms behind autophagy, proving that this process is not optional for survival, it is fundamental to life itself. Without autophagy, cells accumulate damage, and accumulated damage is the root of aging. When autophagy declines, neurodegenerative diseases rise. Alzheimer's disease has been associated with impaired autophagic clearance of beta amyloid plaques. Parkinson's disease has been linked to failures in cellular cleanup. Even cancer cells exploit autophagy pathways to survive under stress. The absence of proper autophagy doesn't just make you tired or inflamed, it changes the trajectory of your lifespan. For decades, caloric restriction has been the gold standard for activating autophagy. When nutrients drop, insulin falls. When insulin falls, a master regulator called mTOR decreases. mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin, is essentially your body's growth switch. When it's high, your cells are told to build, divide, and grow. When it's suppressed, your body shifts from growth mode into repair mode. Fasting suppresses mTOR. That's why fasting works. But here's the part that changes everything. mTOR is not controlled by calories alone. It is controlled by signals. Inside every cell is an energy sensor called AMPK, AMP-activated protein kinase. Think of it as the cellular fuel gauge. When energy levels drop, AMPK turns on. When AMPK turns on, it suppresses mTOR. And when mTOR drops, autophagy rises. Traditionally, low energy meant no food. But modern research has revealed something profound. Certain bioactive compounds can activate AMPK without complete caloric deprivation. In other words, your cells respond to chemistry, not just hunger. Green tea contains a catechin called EGCG, epigallocatechin galate, that has been shown in multiple cellular studies to activate AMPK pathways, not mildly, significantly. Studies published in journals like Molecular Nutrition and Food Research have demonstrated that EGCG can reduce mTOR signaling while enhancing fat oxidation and mitochondrial efficiency. That is a fasting-like signal without a 24-hour fast. Turmeric contains curcumin, a compound extensively studied for its anti-inflammatory and metabolic effects. Curcumin has been shown to inhibit mTOR activity and activate AMPK in both animal and human models. In laboratory settings, curcumin increased markers associated with autophagic activity, suggesting that cells were entering cleanup mode even in the presence of nutrients. That's not speculation, that's biochemical signaling. Resveratrol, found in grape skins, activates SIRT1, a sirtuin protein associated with longevity. Sirtuins interact with both AMPK and mTOR pathways, mimicking aspects of caloric restriction at the genetic level. In fact, early research on resveratrol gained attention because it appeared to replicate some life-extending effects of calorie restriction in animal models. The body wasn't starving, but the genes responded as if it were under energy stress. This is where the narrative shifts. Autophagy is not triggered by suffering, it is triggered by cellular perception of energy stress. And perception can be influenced. Quercetin, found in onions and apples, has demonstrated AMPK activation in experimental models. Extra virgin olive oil contains polyphenols like oleuropein that have been shown to modulate mTOR signaling. Even sulforaphane from broccoli sprouts influences detoxification and cellular stress response pathways linked to autophagy. Your cells don't have eyes. They don't know whether you skipped breakfast. They respond to biochemical signals, ratios of AMP to ATP, insulin concentrations, amino acid availability, oxidative stress markers. When those signals shift, behavior shifts. This doesn't mean fasting is obsolete. Extended fasting creates a powerful and sustained drop in insulin and amino acids, strongly suppressing mTOR and robustly activating autophagy. But what this science reveals is that fasting is not the only lever. There are multiple levers. Modern life makes prolonged fasting difficult for many people. Hormonal stress, athletic demands, work schedules, these realities matter. For some, extended caloric deprivation increases cortisol, disrupts sleep, or impacts thyroid function. The idea that autophagy is reserved only for those who can endure long fasts leaves millions believing cellular renewal is out of reach. But biology is more nuanced than that. Autophagy exists on a spectrum. It is not simply on or off, it is constantly being modulated based on signaling intensity. Small reductions in mTOR, small activations of AMPK repeated consistently can accumulate effects over time. Think of it like brushing your teeth. One aggressive brushing session does not replace daily maintenance. Layering polyphenol-rich foods throughout the day while keeping insulin controlled creates microsignals of energy stress. Drinking unsweetened green tea in the morning, using turmeric with black pepper to enhance bioavailability, choosing extra virgin olive oil over processed seed oils, incorporating berries rich in anthocyanins. These are not random health trends. They are biochemical nudges, and nudges matter. Metabolic disease has become one of the defining crises of our time. Insulin resistance affects hundreds of millions globally. Chronically elevated insulin keeps mTOR persistently high. When mTOR never quiets down, autophagy struggles to activate. Cells stay in growth mode. Growth without cleanup leads to accumulation. Accumulation leads to dysfunction. By stabilizing blood sugar and incorporating compounds that activate AMPK, you lower the noise. You create metabolic space for repair. The most shocking part is this: your body is constantly trying to heal you. Autophagy is not a luxury feature unlocked only by elite biohackers. It is an ancient survival pathway embedded in every cell you have. The question is not whether you possess it. The question is whether your daily signals allow it to function. This changes everything about how we think about longevity. It shifts the focus from extremes to intelligence, from punishment to precision, from starvation to signaling. Imagine approaching your health not as a battle of willpower, but as a conversation with your cells. Lower insulin, activate AMPK, gently suppress mTOR, support sirtuins. Repeat daily. Autophagy is not about how long you can go without food. It's about how effectively you can influence the molecular switches that determine whether your cells build or repair. And once you understand that, you realize something powerful. You are not at the mercy of hunger. You are in control of the signal. For decades, scientists believed that only one force could truly switch on the body's deepest repair systems: starvation, no food, no calories, no negotiation. But then something unexpected began to emerge from the research. Certain natural compounds found in everyday foods were activating the exact same molecular pathways as fasting. Not symbolically, not weakly, biochemically. Inside your cells exist ancient survival switches. These switches evolved when food was scarce, when survival depended on adaptation. When nutrients drop, insulin falls. When insulin falls, a growth regulator called mTOR slows down. When mTOR slows down, autophagy begins, the cellular recycling process that clears damaged proteins, misfolded structures, and broken mitochondria. This is the same mechanism linked to increased lifespan in calorie-restricted animals across multiple species, from yeast to primates. But here's what shook the scientific community. Certain plant compounds were turning those same switches on without complete food deprivation. Green tea contains a catechin called epigallocatechin gallate, EGCG. In controlled laboratory studies, EGCG has been shown to activate AMPK, the cellular energy sensor responsible for detecting low fuel states. When AMPK rises, it suppresses mTOR activity. When mTOR drops, autophagy increases. That's the fasting cascade. In studies published in journals like Biochemical Pharmacology and Molecular Nutrition and Food Research, EGCG demonstrated the ability to enhance fat oxidation, improve mitochondrial function, and trigger autophagic markers in cells. That's not folklore. That's molecular signaling. Curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, has been studied in thousands of peer-reviewed papers. It has shown the ability to downregulate mTOR signaling and activate AMPK in various experimental models. In cancer research, curcumin has demonstrated the capacity to induce autophagy in tumor cells, pushing damaged cells towards self-destruction. In metabolic studies, it has improved insulin sensitivity and reduced inflammatory cytokines that otherwise block cellular repair. In other words, curcumin doesn't just fight inflammation, it shifts the cellular environment toward repair mode. Resveratrol may be one of the most famous examples. Found in grape skins and red wine, it captured global attention when early research revealed it activated SIRT1, a sirtuin protein associated with longevity. Sirtuins are directly involved in mitochondrial biogenesis, DNA repair, and metabolic regulation. In animal studies, resveratrol mimicked aspects of caloric restriction, improving health markers, and extending lifespan in certain species. It activated AMPK. It modulated mTOR. It influenced genetic pathways once thought to respond only to starvation. The body perceived stress signals even when calories were present. Quercetin, abundant in onions and apples, has demonstrated AMPK activation and anti-inflammatory effects in multiple cellular models. Chronic inflammation suppresses autophagy. Quercetin reduces inflammatory markers like TNF-alpha and IL-6, clearing the biochemical noise that prevents cellular cleanup. It's not just an antioxidant, it's a signaling molecule influencing metabolic switches. Even extra virgin olive oil contains polyphenols such as oleuropein and hydroxytyrosol that have shown potential in modulating mTOR activity and enhancing antioxidant defenses. The Mediterranean diet, consistently associated with reduced cardiovascular disease and longer lifespan, may owe part of its power to these compounds quietly influencing cellular signaling every single day. What makes this discovery so profound is not that these compounds are healthy, it's that they communicate directly with your genetic machinery. Your cells don't understand motivation, they understand molecules. They measure ratios of AMP to ATP. They detect amino acid concentrations. They sense oxidative stress. And when specific plant compounds enter the bloodstream, they interact with enzymes, receptors, and transcription factors that ultimately influence whether your cells focus on growth or repair. This is called hormesis, a concept in biology where mild stress triggers a beneficial adaptive response. Exercise is hormetic. Cold exposure is hormetic. Fasting is hormetic. And certain polyphenols appear to act as mild stressors that provoke resilience at the cellular level. They don't damage you. They challenge you just enough to activate defense systems. But let's be clear, this does not mean drinking green tea replaces a 3-day fast. The magnitude of signaling differs. Extended fasting dramatically lowers insulin and amino acids, strongly suppressing mTOR. Polyphenols create subtler shifts, but biology responds to consistency. Small signals, repeated daily, can accumulate into meaningful metabolic adaptation. Modern diets keep insulin chronically elevated. Refined carbohydrates spike glucose. Processed foods overstimulate growth pathways. mTOR remains persistently active. When growth mode never shuts off, repair mode rarely turns on. This imbalance has been associated with accelerated aging and metabolic dysfunction. Layering in compounds that activate AMPK or suppress mTOR gently counters that imbalance, and the implications are enormous. Autophagy is linked to neuroprotection. Impaired autophagy has been observed in Alzheimer's disease, where protein aggregates accumulate in brain tissue. In Parkinson's disease, defective cellular cleanup contributes to neuronal death. While no single compound is a cure, improving autophagic signaling may support the brain's natural ability to clear toxic buildup. Autophagy also influences immune function. During infections, cells use autophagy to eliminate invading pathogens. It's part of your innate defense system. In metabolic health, enhanced autophagy improves insulin sensitivity by removing damaged mitochondria that otherwise generate excess reactive oxygen species. This is not about hype. It's about cellular housekeeping. Imagine your body as a city. Growth builds new structures, but without waste management, garbage piles up, roads crack, systems fail. Autophagy is sanitation, and polyphenols appear to help fund the cleanup crew. What's astonishing is that these compounds evolved as defense chemicals in plants. Plants produce polyphenols to protect themselves from environmental stress, UV radiation, pests, oxidation. When humans consume them, those same compounds trigger stress response pathways in us. It's cross-species biochemical communication, and perhaps that's the deeper lesson. We evolved eating these compounds. Wild plants contain dramatically higher levels of polyphenols than modern processed foods. Industrial agriculture has prioritized yield and sweetness over phytochemical density. As our intake of these signaling molecules declined, our exposure to metabolic disease increased. Correlation is not causation, but the pattern is compelling. This changes the narrative around food. It's no longer just about calories or macros. It's about information. Each bite carries molecular instructions. Some foods shout, store energy. Others whisper, repair. The shocking truth is that you can influence longevity pathways without extreme deprivation. You can sip green tea and activate AMPK. You can season your meals with turmeric and influence mTOR. You can eat berries rich in anthocyanins and deliver antioxidant signals that support mitochondrial health. This isn't magic, it's molecular biology. The power lies in understanding that fasting is one tool, but not the only tool. The body responds to patterns of signaling. And when you consistently provide compounds that mimic aspects of caloric restriction, you create an internal environment biased toward resilience. You are not powerless against aging. You are not dependent on extremes. You are interacting every day with cellular switches that determine whether your body accumulates damage or clears it. The science is still evolving. Human trials are complex, dosages matter, bioavailability matters, but the direction is undeniable. Specific compounds found in natural foods can activate the same energy-sensing and longevity pathways once believed to belong exclusively to starvation. And that realization is revolutionary, because it means the path to cellular renewal may not require suffering, it may require strategy. And once you understand that your fork can influence the same molecular pathways as fasting, you begin to see food not as fuel alone, but as a signal that can shape your biological future. For years, we've been conditioned to believe that transformation only happens through extremes. Extreme fasting, extreme dieting, extreme willpower. If you wanted autophagy, the cellular process linked to longevity, metabolic health, and disease resistance, you had to earn it through suffering. Skip meals, ignore hunger, push your body to the edge. But what if the real secret to longevity isn't found in extremes, but in consistency? Autophagy does not operate like a light switch that flips on after 24 hours without food and shuts off the moment you eat. It operates on a spectrum. It rises and falls in response to signals: insulin levels, amino acid availability, cellular energy status, oxidative stress. And those signals are influenced not just by whether you eat, but by what you eat and how often you trigger metabolic disruption. The human body evolved in an environment of rhythmic stress. Periods of food scarcity were followed by nourishment. Physical exertion was followed by recovery. This rhythm created resilience. Today, that rhythm is broken. Modern diets keep insulin elevated from morning to night. Refined carbohydrates spike blood sugar repeatedly. Ultra-processed foods overstimulate growth pathways like mTOR. The body remains in a near constant state of build mode. And when growth mode never quiets, repair mode rarely has a chance to operate. mTOR, the mechanistic target of rapamycin, is essential for muscle growth and tissue repair. But chronically elevated mTOR signaling has been associated in research with accelerated aging and increased risk of certain cancers. In animal models, suppressing mTOR extended lifespan. In humans, elevated fasting insulin, a marker of metabolic dysfunction, has been linked to increased mortality risk. These are not fringe theories. They are patterns observed across decades of metabolic research. So the question becomes, do you need to shock the system to counteract chronic overstimulation, or can you gently guide it back into balance? Daily strategy beats occasional extremes because biology responds to patterns. A single 48-hour fast may create a powerful surge of autophagy, but if the remaining 6 days of the week are filled with constant glucose spikes and inflammatory foods, the net effect may be blunted. Conversely, small, repeated signals, lower insulin, mild AMPK activation, subtle mTOR suppression, layered day after day, can shift the metabolic baseline. Think about exercise. One brutal workout does not build lasting cardiovascular health. It's the repetition, the steady, strategic stress that reshapes the system. Autophagy is no different. Research shows that even modest caloric restriction improves markers of metabolic health over time. Improvements in insulin sensitivity reduce the chronic activation of growth pathways. Stable blood sugar reduces oxidative stress that otherwise damages mitochondria, and healthier mitochondria are directly linked to improved autophagic efficiency. Chronic hyperinsulinemia is one of the defining metabolic features of modern disease. Studies estimate that a significant percentage of adults in developed nations show signs of insulin resistance. When insulin remains elevated, lipolysis is suppressed, fat oxidation decreases, and mTOR signaling remains high. This biochemical environment favors storage over repair. Over time, damaged proteins accumulate. Dysfunctional mitochondria generate reactive oxygen species. Inflammation rises. Aging accelerates. But here's the hopeful truth. Insulin is highly responsive to dietary patterns. Reducing refined carbohydrate intake, increasing fiber, prioritizing protein strategically, and spacing meals appropriately can lower average insulin exposure across the day. Even a modest reduction in feeding frequency without extreme fasting can create measurable improvements in metabolic flexibility. Metabolic flexibility is the body's ability to switch between burning glucose and fat efficiently, and greater metabolic flexibility has been associated with better mitochondrial health and improved cellular resilience. Layering polyphenol-rich foods into this framework amplifies the effect. Green tea in the morning can activate AMPK pathways while keeping insulin negligible. Extra virgin olive oil, rich in monounsaturated fats and phenolic compounds, supports anti-inflammatory signaling. Berries deliver anthocyanins linked to improved endothelial function and reduced oxidative stress. Turmeric influences inflammatory cascades that otherwise suppress repair mechanisms. These are not random health trends. They are targeted metabolic interventions. The power of daily strategy lies in sustainability. Extreme restriction triggers compensatory responses. Prolonged caloric deprivation can elevate cortisol in some individuals. High stress hormones, when chronic, impair sleep, disrupt thyroid signaling, and negatively affect reproductive hormones. For athletes or highly active individuals, excessive fasting may impair recovery and performance. Sustainability matters because the body adapts not to what you do once, but to what you do repeatedly. Autophagy thrives in an environment of balance, periods of nutrient availability followed by periods of metabolic quiet. You don't need starvation, you need space. Space between meals, space from constant insulin spikes, space from inflammatory overload. When that space exists, even subtle autophagic signaling can take root. There's a concept in biology called cumulative adaptation. Small improvements in mitochondrial efficiency compound over time. Reduced oxidative stress decreases DNA damage. Better insulin sensitivity lowers glycation of proteins, a process linked to wrinkles, vascular damage, and neurodegeneration. Each subtle shift reduces the burden your cells carry, and when the burden decreases, repair becomes more efficient. Consider this: aging is not just the passage of time, it is the accumulation of damage. Autophagy is one of the primary systems that prevents that accumulation. If you enhance autophagy even slightly on a daily basis, you are influencing the rate at which damage builds. That is profound. Extreme strategies often fail because they rely on motivation. Daily strategies succeed because they rely on systems. Preparing meals that stabilize blood sugar, drinking unsweetened beverages, incorporating plant compounds with known signaling effects, prioritizing sleep, which itself enhances autophagic activity in the brain, engaging in moderate exercise, which activates AMPK independently of diet. These are not heroic acts. They are intelligent patterns. The documentary truth is this: your biology is shaped by repetition. The metabolic chaos of modern life is not caused by a single meal. It is caused by years of constant stimulation, and it will not be corrected by a single heroic fast. It will be corrected by restoring rhythm. Imagine reducing your daily insulin exposure by even 20%. Imagine modestly increasing AMPK activation through diet and movement. Imagine slightly lowering chronic inflammation. These incremental shifts influence gene expression, they influence mitochondrial turnover, they influence how efficiently your cells clear debris. The shocking fact is that most chronic diseases develop silently for decades before symptoms appear. Insulin resistance can exist long before diabetes is diagnosed. Atherosclerosis begins in youth. Neurodegenerative changes start years before memory loss becomes obvious. Waiting for crisis before adopting extreme interventions is reactive. Building daily resilience is proactive. Daily strategy beats extreme restriction because it transforms health from an event into a lifestyle. It removes the drama. It removes the burnout. It replaces punishment with precision. It treats food not as an enemy to be avoided, but as a tool to be used wisely. Autophagy is not reserved for those willing to suffer. It is available to those willing to be consistent. The body is constantly listening. Each meal sends a message. Each period of metabolic calm sends another. When those messages repeatedly say balance, repair, resilience, the biology responds. Longevity is not built in a single breakthrough moment. It is built in quiet, daily decisions that shift molecular pathways just enough to matter. And over years, those slight shifts become profound differences in health span. The real revolution is not extreme fasting. It is metabolic intelligence practiced daily. Because in the end, the cells don't remember the one time you pushed yourself to the edge. They remember the pattern you lived by.